We go now to another colonial area, and it seems like those are things that we all need to be aware of geographically, politically, sociologically, so that we can understand why certain areas flourished more than the others. So we'll begin now with the state of Maryland. Maryland was a predominantly Catholic state. It was settled by a gentleman as a land grant, Lord Baltimore. It was granted to him. Then, of course, there were many Protestants that came into the state of Maryland. But Maryland is a unique place in that it has a massive fishing industry. And of course it did even as a small colony. It also has beautiful land, so it was quite good for growing crops. The children, unfortunately, were put to work quite early. They could leave home by age 7, and they would be indentured or they would be lent as an apprentice in order to earn a trade. It wasn't enough just to live in a family. You had to learn how to be a horseshoer, someone who could make planks to build buildings. You wanted to be able to shoe a horse. I believe I mentioned that. But you have many little skills that they wanted their sons to have. The girls, unfortunately, were forced to stay at home, do the drudgery, do the work, do the cooking. And at a certain time, usually not in Maryland, until 14 to 16, they were married off, and then they began their own family. So Maryland is a unique colony in that their children married early, and they did want to indenture or apprentice many of their children. The fathers worked hard. There were plantations there that and in later things that would grow. They were great tobacco growers, but there were some plantations there. But there was pretty low counting of slaves because the children did a remarkable amount of the work. Then we have what we call the families that were step families, because a husband would lose a wife would lose a husband, then they would intermarry, and you'd end up with sort of a yours, mine, and ours situation. So interesting colony, the state of in Maryland, and they just recently unearthed some lead caskets, and they were buried down by the first colonial area, one of the early homes, and they were lined in lead totally and buried deep in the ground. And there was a child, the corpse of a child, and also Lord and Lady Baltimore, they believe, were unearthed. So these are these are now, of course, in the Smithsonian under the colonial life, and you couldn't survive the lead coffin, let alone the lead that was very prevalent in all the communities.